So, disclaimer, if it sounds like I'm sick, I'm not. I have allergies, and they are kicking my ass. But with all that aside, let's talk about Artemis Fowl. Now, this is one of the newer movies that came out on Disney Plus after being slated to come out in theaters, but because of everything that's going on, they decided to go ahead and drop it on their streaming service, and for good reason. At a 9%, this movie was not good at all and probably wouldn't have made them any money in theaters. But this movie, it stars Ferdia Shaw, Colin Farrell, Josh Gad, Laura McDonald, and Judi Dench. So this movie is about Artemis Fowl Sr. being taken and held for exchange for an artifact called the Oculus. So Junior must find the Oculus and come up with a way to free his father from the grips of an anonymous figure. But he's not the only one looking for the Oculus, so there is a race against time to find it. So there will be no comparison to the books because I didn't even know that this IP existed in books prior to even the first trailer. But what I can say is right off the bat, you'll see that this movie is a rush job when it comes to the introduction and character moments, because it just does not spend enough time for us to get invested and attached to these characters for like certain actions and consequences happen like in certain parts of the movie. And I felt like they could have spent a little bit more time on that, and it was just no real character development. They did go into the backstory and try to, work it out a little bit with Artemis Fowl Jr., but I like right off the bat, I didn't like the character. He came off as an ass, as just a dick. He wasn't a likable character like House, who is just too smart for his own good. He just came off really unlikable, and even throughout the rest of the movie, I didn't care for him at all. And it was like, the one thing I didn't like about his character is that he took to his role and what he was doing with his father's work and research and all that stuff. He took to it too quickly. It seemed like within the hours or maybe a day or so, he learned how to use the gadgets. He learned how to fight. He learned how to do this. He learned how to just be confident in just being who he was. And it's like, you just got introduced to this. You're not about to be that comfortable, in doing what you're doing. And they just really didn't elaborate on that. But not to poo-poo on this movie too much, I did like some of the concepts that they introduced. Like, they have this machine that goes up in the air, and like in a certain area they can stop time so that these like fairies can work their magic and do things or whatever they need to do without the humans even knowing about it. And I did like that. But this whole movie just comes off as a low rent Men in Black. And I know this previously existed in the books, but in this movie it just came off reminding me of Men in Black, just not as good. And the visuals and the CG are both good and bad. Some of it looks really good and others not so much. And it was one scene, it's not a negative, but it was one scene in this movie where Judi Dench, her character, is in a ship and she's flying over the sea, and for like about 4 to 5 seconds she's looking at the camera. And I'm just like, why was she just looking at the camera? My son asked the same question. I'm like, I don't know. It didn't make any sense. Like, was she breaking the fourth wall or not? Or like, what was the point of her looking at the camera? I just kind of thought that maybe she knew that she was in the shit movie. And so that was her at that point, like, let's get this shit over with and just, continue the movie. And as far as the humor goes, there is a total lack of humor. The humor that they try to inject into this movie just doesn't work. Josh Gad is put in there as a comic relief but fails in every aspect. And he narrates the story to a point where he's talking about certain things in the story that he could have no knowledge of because he wasn't present in those certain events. He's only really in a small portion of the movie besides the whole narration. But other than that, it was like, how could you know that this happened and that happened and you wasn't even there at that point? And adding on to the narration, he's introducing a character called Domovoy Butler, and certain things he says about him is like he's kind of setting up for maybe something later that happened in the movie. And as I'm watching the movie, I'm thinking like, okay, that's a setup. But then I watched the whole movie and there is no payoff to it. So there was no point of literally putting that within the movie. Because I'm thinking, did I miss something? Or maybe they just didn't add it to the movie. I don't know. But there was no point to it. And like I said, there's no connection to the characters, so the emotional moments do not work. And it has some decent action that I did like, but it's few and far in between. And this movie is like a hotel. You know, after a while, you just check out because it's not enough to care to keep you invested. And in one part of the movie, Artemis Jr. says that he's a criminal mastermind. I don't know where he got that from. I don't know how he calls himself a criminal mastermind after watching this whole movie. There is no criminal effect and there is no mastermind effect. So I don't know where he got that from. And this movie just tries to be bigger than what it really is. Tries to go for the epic feel. And it just was an epic fail. You know, and it really just really isn't a spoiler. But it does set up for a sequel that more than likely will never happen because this movie was like just, it wasn't good. If you come across it, definitely miss it because it is a miss. Don't even watch it. If you haven't seen it yet, you can just pass on it because it's not a good movie. It really isn't. And just don't waste your time with it. Just watch something else because I'm telling you, you'll be grateful for it.